Quest to find the meaning of life can be like trying to find a black cat in a dark room. We just don't know where it is. But the paradox is you cannot actually have a meaningful life that is true to yourself without actually knowing what meaning is. So this just happened a few weeks ago. I get this email from a girl who's studying microbiology somewhere, and she emailed me basically telling me how good my article was. And after she told me that, after we exchanged a few emails about the content that I've written in that article, she tells me that she is in an existential crisis. I don't want to tell you the details of it, but what she basically says is the line that she tells me is, despite looking for it everywhere, why can't one find meaning in their life? And I could totally resonate with her because that has been a problem that I have tackled seriously in my life as well. I know the meaning of life can sometimes seem such a stupid question, yet it is such a question that is so basic to our own life. I mean, if you don't know what the meaning, what the purpose, what the goal of your life is, what are you trying to do, right? How can you live a life that is true to yourself, right? Basically, meaningful to yourself, fulfilling to your core. And you see, the problem was even with myself, at a specific phase in my life, I thought the meaning of my life is to do a certain thing. It was like I want to achieve these things, and that is the meaning of my life, right? And if I achieve these things, I would have accomplished the meaning of my life, and it would be like the most pleasurable feeling that I would ever feel. And I did accomplish a few of those things, but guess what? It was not the most pleasurable thing that I thought that I would feel, right? And then maybe and you know, I was really much of I was really much of a high achiever, right? So I thought that in order to have a meaningful life, you must achieve a lot of things. But as I grew older, and I was like, okay, I was older, by the way, I'm I'm talking about when I was 17. That's old for me. So that was when I was thinking these things, and there was something seriously wrong with me, because when you're 17, you should not be thinking about the meaning of life. You have much more beautiful things to do, but here I am. So then I thought, okay, if it's not hard work, if it's not achieving a lot of things, it must be the meaning of life must be to enjoy life, right? It must be a kind of a hedonistic pursuit, right? You just have a peaceful, loving, fulfilling life, and that is the way that it should be, right? And guess what? I tried doing that too, and I abandoned all my calendars. I abandoned all of my productivity routines that I had, and guess what? After a few times, thank God, after a few months of doing that, I think it was not even months, it was a few weeks. After a few weeks of doing that, I got super bored, and I was like, no, this should not be it. This is not it, right? I should do something else. And then that was where this dilemma kind of struck me. It's like it's not even trying to achieve something, it's not even living in the moment and being present, because that gets boring some of the time. So what should I do? And you know, I'm not going to give you the answer right now, but and also not saying, by the way, I'm not saying that this disclaimer for everyone, I'm not saying that this video will help you in finding the meaning of your life. It won't. Because I feel the meaning of life is a pursuit that is personal, that has to be very subjective. Because let's imagine this, right? What if I opened the video and I opened the video saying that the meaning of life is this, right? And by the way, a lot of people do that to you, and we're going to get to that, and we're going to discuss that in detail. But a lot of people try to give you a furbished, not even furbished, it's like a furbished and refurbished, and it's like a total complete thing that they give to you, and they're like, okay, the meaning of life is supposed to be this. And you don't accept that, you know. I feel if there comes, even if there's like a light that shines in front of you and that says, okay, the meaning of your life is this, even then, I don't think that, at least I could say this for myself, I wouldn't take it, because that has to be something that comes from within, right? I cannot just accept it, even if you tell me or somebody else tells me. So this video won't actually tell you the meaning of life, but this would give you a good starting point. It's like it would give you a good starting point and an idea of where you're headed. It would make your journey a lot easier, because these are the mistakes that I made, and these are the best tips that I've learned if you want to find the meaning of life. So here it is. The first thing that you want to do if you want to find and live a meaningful life is don't listen to people, right? And I know it seems like, oh, well, I should not listen to people. What are you saying? There are a lot of good people that I think I should listen to, because there are a lot of good people who have tried to tell me the meaning of life is this, and they have some good point. Yes, you should listen to them. But the thing is, if you're trying to find the meaning of life, you cannot conform, right? Because here's how basically everything else happens, right? There's this story of this very evil villain in Greek mythology. His name is, if I'm pronouncing it right, his name is Procurian, right? And the way that Procurian tried to torture his victims, you know what his way was? If you're one of Procurian's victims, what he would do to you is he would take you to his bed. He had a bed specially for his victims. He would take you. I think he also had a hotel or something, right? He would take you to his bed, and what he would do to you is, if you were too small for the bed, he would stretch you out, and he would stretch you out to just make you fit on the bed. And if you were too lengthy for the bed, and if your legs were like hanging out of the bed a little, he would cut your legs just to make you fit to the bed, right? And that is Procurian, my friend. And by the way, this is the best analogy of society that I've ever heard. Because guess what happens when you're growing up, right? When you're growing up, a lot of people, even especially your parents, especially the people you know, especially the school that you study in, the teacher that you love, and the people that you're also inspired by in a way, all of them, and even the people that you're not inspired by, all of them are trying to tell you a story of how you should live your life. And you, through the process of conditioning is a different thing. Ivan Pavlov told us about it, is that conditioning is they repeat that thing so many times in front of you that you try to think that it's real. And by the way, if we take this idea to the extreme, even your name is that way. Your name, my name, all of our names are that way as well. Because let's go back to the time when you were born, right? And when you were born, guess what happened? You were there and you were lost, and you were like totally lost. Like you don't even know who you are. You don't even know who these people are, but they come up to you and they make these weird faces and they try to laugh and do all of these things. But guess what? The people around you, they said, we're going to give this one a name. And what we're gonna call this one is, let's say, James, right? And guess what? A lot of people come around you and they say, okay, this one is James, this one is James, your name is James, you're James, you're James, you're James. And guess what? After a few while, you're saying, oh, so I am James, right? That's because that's what they're saying, so they must be right. They know a lot more than me. They're mature. They know the world. So that must be me, right? And then you start and that's when and then you accept that and you're like, okay, I am James, right? This is a very deep existential question, by the way. So a very deep existential kind of a paradox, like even your name is not you, what? But then let's take that to the next step. It's like all the ideas that you have, all the concepts that you have are the ones that were given to you through conditioning. And it's not that all of them are wrong. Some of them, it's not even about right or wrong. It's just when you're trying to find the meaning of life, you cannot start with already filled mind, right? Because guess what? A lot of people set goals for themselves, and their goals are like, oh, I want to get this car, or I want to get this phone, or I want to get this much money in my bank account. And there's nothing wrong with that stuff. You should get them. Or their goal is like, I want to become famous and all that, right? And a lot of people do. There are people who go out and they do those things, and still they don't feel fulfilled. They feel empty within themselves, because that's when they find out that what I was trying to do and what I was so committed about saying that, okay, these are my goals, they were not my goals. They were the goals that were imposed to me upon society. And I felt like that if I did achieve them, I would feel good, right? And this is where if you have to find, it also ties back to the thing that we were saying about, if you want to find the meaning of life, it cannot be a complete, I cannot give it to you in a golden wrapper and say, here it is, my child, this is the meaning of your life. I cannot say that, because you won't accept it completely. It has to come up with something that is inside of yourself. You can't just accept it, right? And by the way, a lot of people do accept it. Let's face the fact. A lot of people they're completely okay in living the life that they are. They don't want to concern themselves with the question of meaning. And I hope you're not one of them, because if you're on this channel, if you're interested in physics, philosophy, personal development, and truth seeking, I hope you're not one of them, because you are the guy who wants to go the extra mile, right? You're the guy or the gal who wants to go the extra mile. You are the guy or the gal who wants to learn more. You are the guy or the gal who wants to know deeper answers to deeper questions, right? So welcome to the channel, right? So that's what it is. And basically, you have to start not with a complete mind, but with a mind that is empty, right? It's very zen, but not that is empty, but a mind that is not filled with the garbage that society has imposed onto you, that your parents or anybody else in your society have imposed onto you, right? Because if you start with that, you're going to go live your life in that way, and you're going to see that it's not true to yourself. Okay? And now when you've done that, the next thing that you want to do, the first step is do not conform, right? Because if you're conforming, you are becoming a victim to the Procurian bed. All right? When you have done that, the second thing that you must do is you must start with the absolute truths. And what do I mean by that? What do you mean by absolute truths? So we have to understand there are two kinds of truths in this world. The first one is absolute truth. Absolute truths are things like laws of physics. Absolute truths they're the universal truths. They are absolutely true, right? Gravity is a universal truth. I don't care how optimistic you are, but if you jump off that building, gravity is going to get you, and without a parachute, by the way, gravity is going to get you, and you're going to break your bones, or you might even die, right? I don't care how optimistic you are. Gravity is a law, and they're very rare. I don't think that you can change it because it's a physical. It's the law of how the universe operates, right? And then these are examples. The laws of physics, the laws of electromagnetism. All of these they're physical absolute truths, right? But then there are also things which are not absolute truths. They are relative truths. Things like success equals happiness. Things like money equals happiness, right? Because let's say that in some sense, money does equals happiness, right? For some people, they make money and they are really happy. But for some people, they make money and they're even more miserable than they are before. So it's a relative truth. A relative truth is it might be true for you or it might not be. I don't know, because it was true for this person, but it was not true for this person, right? So these are examples of relative truths. And there are a very tiny number of absolute truths that we have discovered in this universe. A lot of the other truths are just relative truths. They are relative. And even, by the way, even stuff like that, they're relatives, right? They not relatives, but they are relative, right? So they're relative truth. So when you have to start to find the meaning of life, I have found that a really good place to start is with the absolute truths. And what are the absolute truths? I mean, how can you find the meaning of life if you don't know that you're living on a pale blue dot, which has merely no existence, which existence is merely that of a blip in the entire cosmic grand show? How would you find the meaning of life if you didn't know how that 1.3 million Earths can fit inside the sun? And the sun is just one star out of 200 billion or 300 billion in our galaxy. I mean, if you don't know that, and if you don't know the greater picture of the universe, that is where you'll be stuck. And for a lot of people, for a significant amount of history, humans used to believe in the geocentric model of the world, right? And the geocentric model of the world was that the Earth is the center of the universe and everything else is built around it. And by the way, this dates back to ancient Greek, where Greek philosophers, they actually came up with the theory that, okay, it might be that Earth is not the center of the universe. They actually came up with it, but they didn't have the tools to kind of observe it. They didn't have the telescope, and we actually got the tool when Galileo came up with it. And that's when we actually saw that the Earth is not the center of the universe. In fact, it is also moving around something else, and that something else is the sun. So if you think that the Earth is the center of the universe, the picture that you're going to have of the universe is completely different, and the meanings that you're going to assume out of it are also completely different. But if you think that the Earth is not the center of the universe, that the Earth is just this tiny little thing, and even our don't even go to our galaxy, even in our solar system, it's like this tiny little thing, right? What is the meaning that you're going to make of it? And by the way, here's a bit of physics for you, that 1.3 million Earths can fit inside the sun, and the sun is just one star, right? And do you know what the nearest star to the sun is? The nearest star to the sun is called the Proxima Centauri, and it is 4.2 light years away. For those of you who don't know light year, what a light year is the distance that light travels if it keeps traveling for an entire year, right? Like if you throw a light beam and it travels for an entire year, that is actually called a light year. And for those of you who want to get a perspective about how fast light is, let's say that I'm holding this globe in my hand. This is the earth, right? This is our home that I'm holding in my hand. And this is actually a light beam, and I'm holding it this way. And just for a second, I've let this go. Just for a second, I've let this go and got it back. In this second, it has circumnavigated the globe 8 times. 8 times. That's how fast light is. And if this speed keeps traveling for a year, for 4.2 years, it travels to the nearest star. And oh, by the way, did I tell you that the nearest star is just one star? We have 300 billion of them in just the Milky Way galaxy alone. And every star on average has 4 to 6 planets. I think it's 4 to 6 or 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. It has that many planets, right? And most of them there are planets around every star that fall in the Goldilocks range. And the Goldilocks orbit is the orbit that is the perfect, that receives just the enough amount of heat, just the enough amount of temperature, and just the enough atmospheric condition that life is possible there. But we have not found life so far in our galaxy, and we have not found even a certain hint of life anywhere. So we are alone in this cosmic grand show in just the galaxy. And by the way, did I tell you that there are on average 300 to 500 billion stars in every galaxy? Depends on the way that you calculate them. And there are about 2 trillion, that's trillion with a T, right, galaxies in the universe. You know how big that is? You want to imagine how big that is? That is insanely huge. And the Earth is just one tiny thing. It's just a pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan so poetically put it. And he has an entire video, if you want to go that, it's called The Pale Blue Dot. And you can see that. And you see, the first time you have this realization, it's like this waking up. It's like, oh my God, this is it? That's all it is? So let's imagine, let's do this thought experiment. Let's say that tomorrow a nuclear explosion happens on Earth, and the entire Earth is gone to pieces. It's like it evaporates to ashes. What do you think is the effect that it's going to have on the solar system? You know what the solar system is going to say? It's going to say, meh, whatever. It's just a planet, lost it. Who cares? And you know what is the effect that is going to be on the galaxy? The galaxy won't even go meh, right? It won't even have, it's like zero effect. It's like, what if one cell dies in your entire body, right? Whatever, right? It's just one cell, right? And even the Earth in the galaxy, it's even lesser than one cell. It's the scale doesn't even compare, right? So it's like, wake up, right? It's like we don't matter as much as we think we do, right? We think that, okay, we have such big inflated egos, and we think okay, we humans are the real thing. But no matter what you do on the Earth, even if you build empires, Alexander did that, and a lot of people in the history of the world did that. Where are they now? Where's that world? Where's the great Alexander, right? And where is great civilization and all the things that he accomplished, right? We have accounts of them, but where are they? Where are people like great emperors? Where are people like everybody? This is very haunting. Yet I feel this is also a very beautiful fact about Earth, is that in the end, it levels everything up. Nothing really matters in the end, right? Because everything is going to go to ashes. And by the way, in our unit of time, is what we don't understand about time is that time is a very relative thing, and the way that we calculate time in our brains is very different than the way that let's say a fly or any insect calculates time. And the way that we calculate time is very different than the way the universe calculates time, right? In fact, all our units of time are made up. What we call a day is also made up. And then based on that, we make up our weeks, our months, our years, and all that stuff. It's like we have added units to some certain physical phenomena, like the rotation of the Earth and the revolution of the Earth, and we call this, okay, this is that much time. And if I say 300 million years, it feels like a lot of time from our perspective. It's like, oh my God, 300 million years. I don't know if I'm going to be alive for the next 100, right? So that 300 million years in the universe's time frame is like, well, whatever. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, right? And we have just been here. The Earth is 4.2 billion years old, and we have just been here for like a few million years. So our existence is like, it's like not even a portion of time. And by the way, what happens to star is a star when it a star is born and it also dies out when it runs out of fuel. So when it runs out of fuel to burn, the fuel is mainly hydrogen. It depends on what the core of the star is. It's either hydrogen, carbon, or some other element. When it runs out of fuel, what it does is a star collapses onto itself. But before collapsing, it expands nearly 5 to 10 times its size. And one day, our sun will also run out of its fuel. But you don't have to worry about that. That's like 300 million years away now. So it will run out of its fuel, and guess what? It will swallow the Earth, and that would be the end of Earth. And it might be that we might be a multi-planetary species at that time. It might be that we have technology that is so advanced that we might be a multi-galactic or a multi-universal species. Who knows? But for now, all that we have, all that we know, is this pale blue dot. And this is our existence, and this is all we got. And so that is where we start. And when we start with this, you really start to this is what it is a nihilistic perspective, but this is where I got to, and this perspective was nothing really matters. Nothing really matters, no matter what you do on Earth. You build businesses, you build great things, you build factories, you write great books, you write great poems, whatever you do, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's just like Sisyphus, right? Because you know the story of Sisyphus? The Sisyphus is the guy who is punished by the gods in Greek mythology, and his punishment is that you have to roll up the boulder up the hill, and as you roll up the boulder up the hill, as you're just about to reach there, it will fall back down. And every day your job is just this: you do everything you can to roll up the boulder up the hill, and it'll just come back down. And you do that every single day for the rest of your life, right? And Camus's book, I think it's called The Myth of Sisyphus, is on the same topic. It's like the way he explains that everything in this, no matter what you do on this planet, it's Sisyphus. Because in the end, guess what? This would happen, and the boulder is down, and it's all leveled again. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? And by the way, this also happens from a quantum perspective as well. That atoms are created, and it's happening right now. It's just we can't see it, that atoms are created out of nothingness, out of energy, and they fall back down. So it's like they're being created and they're falling back down, and they're happening multiple times, right? It's happening a lot of the times. We can't even comprehend that kind of. But quantum field theory tells us that. Quantum energy theory tells us that this is very true. So you tell me now, what matters in this life? And my answer to you is nothing really matters. And you see, this is where a lot of people do get to this point. But this is where nihilism comes in, right? And nihilism is all about if nothing really matters, like, why should I even do anything, right? It's like, okay, nothing. A lot of people get to this point and they're like, okay, nothing really matters. Why should I even try? Because nothing really matters. But the thing is, this is where the choice comes. This is where you see that life, in essence, there is no meaning to life. Right? There is no such thing as a meaning in life. That is what I think based on all of the physics that I've told you, all of the if I keep that data, that absolute truth in front of me, it's like it doesn't really matter. It has no meaning whatsoever. But that doesn't mean I should not do anything. And here's why. Because you have a choice now. And there are two different perspectives that people take. And the first one is, life doesn't matter? Okay, I'm not gonna even do anything. Like, why should I even do this stupid podcast, right? Why should I even try, right? But the other perspective is, okay, life doesn't matter. Is that true? Everything's gonna level it back down. Great. Let me do things, right? Let me do the things that I want to do because I enjoy doing them. Let me do the things that I want to do because I derive joy from them. Because I want to do that because I just want to do that, right? It's not because I want it to matter. I wanted to say I was watching this video on Instagram, I think, a few days ago, and it was from some Japanese director, and the man was a very wise man, and he spoke very few words publicly. But someone was asking him. He's built one of the greatest directing studio in Japan, and I think someone was asking him, what would happen of the studio? What do you see would happen of the studio in the future? And he answers very calmly with a smile on his face, and he says, it will perish. And he's like, what do you mean? The person is saying, what do you mean? He says, all good things perish in the end. Everything perishes in the end. Everything goes back to what? Nothingness, back again. Everything is leveled back down to dust back again. And that is what is going to happen to the studio. And it's very, so it's like you have to accept this fact of life, that in the end, it's all over. But that also doesn't mean that guy also built a studio and he was also working as an animator at that time as well. That doesn't mean that you should not build stuff, because great artists, great people, and by great people I mean people who are great at stuff that they do. Let's take Leonardo da Vinci, for example. The reason he was painting the Mona Lisa was not because, okay, people would it would sell for billions of dollars. That is not the reason that he was painting it. The reason that he was painting it because he loved it. He loved painting it, right? He loved even the act of painting. That's what he loved, right? And the reason Picasso was working so hard on making all those sculptures is not because he wanted to do something. He wanted to build such a great thing that people would appreciate for centuries to come. And he loved that. He loved doing that. And this is the essence of life. That this is what I call a nihilistic view, but a positive nihilism, right? This is where the view of nihilism, where it's like, okay, if nothing really matters, why should I even do anything, right? That is more on the negative side. And basically, I think this is where your choice comes in. And the reason I call it a choice is because of a man called Viktor Frankl. And the story of Viktor Frankl is as follows: that Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was conducting research on a theory that he would later call logotherapy, right? And as he was conducting the research, it was during the time of the Holocaust, and basically the Nazis took him, threw him in a concentration camp, and burned all of his research, all of his work, all the manuscripts. They took them away and they burned it. But Viktor Frankl, he survived. He survived all that time in the Holocaust, and he became a Holocaust survivor. But in the process, he lost both of his parents. He lost his wife, and I think he also lost his children. So all the close people to him died, and he has seen some really. The concentration camps are basically the most inhuman, horrible conditions that human could live in, and that's what he survived. And he actually he kept his observations going in the concentration camp as well, and presented the thesis of his entire research in the book called Man's Search for Meaning. And what he saw actually in the concentration camp was that the people who survived the most, the people who had the ratio of surviving the most, were the people who had a sense of meaning in their life. And this, by a sense of meaning, it was like they had a reason to survive, right? They had a reason to live. And the reason for some was, I want to go back to my family. And the reason for some was, I'm worried about my wife. And the reason for some was, this is the thing that I want to do. And the reason for some was, I want to do this, right? And that was the single biggest predictor of life in conditions as horrible as a Nazi concentration camp during the Holocaust. And he didn't say the conditions of life, oh, you got lucky and all that, but this was the single biggest predictor that he saw. And his thesis statement is that all of his work is, life has no meaning except the meaning that you give it. And this is where the responsibility, I feel, falls on your shoulder, that instead of trying to find a meaning, I think, instead of trying to find the black cat in the dark room when you're trying to find it, why not just get out of the room and just create? Not a cat. Obviously, you can't create a cat, right? But you can create a meaning of your life for yourself. And it is something that could be totally, and in the end that it won't really matter, right? And in the end, it's all going to end anyway. But that's not a good reason to not do the stuff that you want to do and not take action on the things that you want to take action on, because that is where your choice is. And I think there was also this story about Nelson Mandela. I mean, somebody was interviewing him, and the interviewer asked Nelson Mandela that, what about the years of suffering what about the suffering that you withdrew in the prison? And then Nelson Mandela, he looks at the prisoner, the interviewer, and he says that, oh, what suffering? He's like, the suffering when you were in prison. He's like, that was no suffering. That was preparation. Because when I was home, I think he was prison inside his home, and he's like, when I was uh, in that state, I knew that either if I die, my death would bring a revolution, or if I go back, then I would bring the revolution myself. It was one of those things. So it was not suffering; it was preparation. So a person as great as Nelson Mandela, what is saying that is because he had attached a sense of meaning to his existence, and his sense of meaning was, I want to live for these people, and his sense of meaning was something that was greater than himself. And that was also the thing, that was also the common theme that that Viktor Frankl noticed in people, that their sense of meaning was to live for something greater than myself. Either it's your family, either it's the people you want to help, either it's the world. And by the way, this is where it's your job to come up with the meaning of your life. And by the way, it would come from within. It's not the reason I cannot give it to you is because I don't know you as well as you know yourself. Because nobody knows you as well as you know yourself, because you are there living with yourself 24/7. And just because of that, you know what moves you. You know what is the thing that matters to you, right? And by the way, don't even worry. And I think the reason why the fact that nothing really matters it is so freeing. It's exactly like you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And this truth sets you free because you kind of stop giving a damn about what other people think, right? You don't care that much about what other people think, because they'll be gone, I'll be gone, you won't matter. So why should I even care about what they're saying? Why should I even care about what they think of me? Because when you know this, and when you really understand this, that we're just living on a pale blue dot, and think of my existence, right? And think my existence is this much, and I inflated it to be like it's like the entire universe revolves around me. I'm sorry, it does not. But this fact is freeing because it gives you room to build. It gives you room to do the things that you want to do for yourself. You want to paint? Go paint. You want to help people and you think that is your meaning? That's it. Maybe your meaning is loving people, right? And that can be that. And it could be basically anything that you want, but you have to choose a thing that is true to yourself, or otherwise it won't work. So with that said, if you want more advice on how to build, on how to create a meaning, and among other things, if you want more advice, I've got this free ebook that I've wrote, and this is for you guys. It's called 6 Principles to Lead a Truthful Life, a life that is closer to the truth, a life that is built on absolute truths. You can download that in the description below. And with that said, build a meaningful life by creating the meaning that is true to yourself, by creating a meaning that comes from within. And that is the only way you can build a truthful life. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments, don't forget to comment down below. I read every comment that you guys do, and I would love to see you in the next one. If you have enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to watch this video on my side. It also relates to physics, philosophy, and personal development. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Continue seeking truth and become a truth seeker.